For your proposal for your research essay on a short story, I want you to submit a working thesis and 3 sources at least. One of those sources should be your primary source, and the other 2 will be from Alabama Virtual Library. Make sure that you're using college level sources. Use Alabama Virtual Library. That's the best way to find college level sources. Using things like Course Hero or Lit Charts, things like that that you find online are things that you might use in middle school or maybe high school, but they're really not college level sources. Those are basically study guides to help you understand what you're reading and even to help you read at a deeper level, pointing out literary elements and things like that. But for things that you're going to quote for your research, they need to be big ideas that are proposed by scholars in the field. So these are people who are paid to do research on these works of literature. So make sure that you are using Alabama Virtual Library. And if you need any help with that, you certainly may get help from the librarians either online or in person. They will be happy to help you. Your working thesis should not have a hanging indent, so I'm going to highlight that and go up here to change the special indent to none. I will just keep my working thesis like that. So I want you to do the heading as you should do, that you can see on your handouts for formatting essays in MLA format. I want you to have a creative original title. It can be the working title. This is not a wonderful title, but it's a reference to a bit of scripture and changes the first word to fit with what I think is happening in the short story here. Your working thesis should name the work that you are studying. The primary source is the work you're studying and writing about. You should have the author's name in there. And then you can say what the author does. What is the author doing, saying with this short story? And how? Are they using a certain character to highlight some aspect of the human condition? So a theme is a commentary on the human condition or a universal truth. And the literary device being used or literary element being used will either be a symbol or a character or the setting. You have lists and lists of literary devices, so you can choose any of those. And you could choose multiple literary devices if that's not too broad for this essay, which will be about 3 pages long. I also want you to include your preliminary works cited or working bibliography. You will change this to works cited when it is time to put this in the essay. Your sources should always be in alphabetical order, and you should include, of course, the primary source and 2 secondary sources. Now, how did I find my sources, you may wonder? Well, I will go to Wallace State homepage and show you. Just go to the library up here at the top. Go to Alabama Virtual Library. Just click all sources. Sometimes if we just click college and university, it deletes some that might be good. But be careful not to choose any sources that say specifically high school, middle school, or elementary school. That you don't really have any business there. So the way I found the sources for the short story, The Birthmark, I didn't have a whole lot of luck with one of my favorites, which is Gale Literature Criticism. So if you don't have luck in one of these Gale literary databases, I ended up just going to the Gale Literature Resource Center, which is a database of databases. And then I had to click on literature. And then I had to click on Gale Literature Resource Center again. So it's not the most direct route, but we'll take what we can get. And I realize it can be frustrating. Don't give up. Keep working at it. Get the librarians to help you. They are magicians. They can find anything anywhere. So then I typed in Hawthorne specifically because there are other authors who have written poems and stories called The Birthmark, and it helps if you type it correctly, which is hard to do while you're talking. And then I found several in literature criticism for The Birthmark. So there were several that I like. This one I actually kind of liked, and I wanted to show you how when you go to cite your source, when you go to find the work cited, you can either click up here or you can scroll to the bottom of the page. And I recommend that you really read your sources before you come up with a working thesis. And find one source that you can really latch onto that has some good ideas that you feel like you could use in your paper. And what you're going to use in the paper from the sources should not be plot summary. It should not tell me what happened in the story. You should be able to tell me what happened in the story just from having read the story more than once. So don't quote anything from an article that you're using for research. Don't quote something that says what happened in the story. Quote something like this. Like my thesis talks about Puritanism as a contributing factor to codependency in the wife in the story. So that might fit with what I'm talking about and what I have to say. So I could possibly use this assertion. He's asserting, or yes, this author is asserting that the Puritan morality contributed to the writings of Hawthorne, which is a little bit obvious too. So I think I could find something even more debatable. So I want to find something that is debatable within my research articles so I can contribute to the conversation with my own viewpoint. So I might agree completely with the debatable statement I find in my source, and I might back that up with quotations from the primary source, which you will also have in your essay. Or I might disagree, and that's healthy too. So if you find a debatable statement in your sources that you disagree with, you will just explain why you disagree with it without saying, I disagree because. You could say, clearly, blah, 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 and then state the disagreement without using any first-person pronouns, and then back that up with part of the primary source quoted to show where you can find that in the short story, that you are right about having a better idea than what the source had, or you're right about agreeing with the source in his or her debatable statement. But back to putting the source in, this one's a little weird because usually when I see a name that has the little article with it, it goes after the last name here, but because they have that here, I will leave it that way. But notice the disclaimer. In AVL, they warn you that there might be some things that are not exactly right, and you need to double check capitalization, dates, and names to make any necessary corrections. So I'm going to move the DI to after Roberto when I put this in, but for now I'm just going to copy it. Oops. I like to have the control of the copy, and then I'm going to paste it back into my document. And I can't remember. I think the last name started with a P, but I'm going to I just hit plain old paste. So now my font is wrong, but first I want to change the DI to after Roberto. And now I want to make sure my font matches everything else. Notice at the top, it's still Times New Roman, but it was not 12 point. And I don't think it's totally black. I think it was grayish. So check that. Check everything else that they have suggested you check. Capitalization, italics, quotation marks, and all of that. And now I notice that P should not come after T, so I need to put this in the correct place if I want to use it. So I'm going to delete it. I just hit Control X, and I'm going to put my cursor in front of the R for Rosenberg here and hit Control V to paste it there. And it kept my hanging indent and everything I need. So I encourage you to add more than 2 outside sources for your working bibliography in case you end up preferring one to another. So these are all articles that I found using the birthmark as part of my search, Hawthorne and birthmark. But in my thesis, I mentioned codependency. So if you wanted to explore some psychological facet of human nature that you want to explore, you could look back in all your resources that you got to from the homepage, library, Alabama Virtual Library. And one easy way to search more broadly is just the Academic Search Premier. And it's a huge database of other databases. So, and by the way, because you're using databases and they're called Gale Literature Resource Center and Academic Search Premier, you won't say, according to Academic Search Premier. That's a database. A database is not an author. So you need to say, according to, and then give the author's name, or according to the author of, and then give the title of the article. And the title of the article will be after the author's name, or if there is no author, the article title should be what's first in the work cited. So don't ever say, according to Gale Literature Resource Center. I have that happen frequently, so I just wanted to give you that fair warning there. Now I've lost my thing. Basic search. This is where we were from Academic Search Premier. Basic search. And then if I wanted to just understand codependency and be able to use a scholarly definition there, I might just do a search for the psychological phenomenon that I'm looking for. So there's a lot of crossover between literature study and psychology. In fact, Sigmund Freud based a lot of his theories on literature, and there are many psychologists who reject a lot of Freud's studies, and ironically, the literary community still uses that to study human nature through works of fiction. All right, so concept of codependency, that might be a good one. The teacher is codependent. I should probably read that. Emotional stocks and bonds, that kind of resonates for me, stocks and bonds, with the Puritan ethic and mentality. So that just kind of captures my attention. So I'm not sure that I would use this one. In fact, it doesn't, let's see, full text. See if it has enough full text to, yeah. So if you don't see the full article, click on that full text thing. And then again, to cite it, you can send it to yourself here, export, what is that? Permalink, cite. So all of the different citation icons look a little different in every database. So this pulls up when you hit cite for this database, and you don't want to use the first one, second one, third one. You want to use MLA. So make sure that you are doing MLA format for all of yours. Notice the name is in all caps, and we can't keep it that way. We're going to have to reformat that. So I just tend to paste it to the bottom and then reformat. And then I need to make this lowercase. I'm going to also need to change the font and change the color. And I'll see if there's anything else I need to change. Color, the font should be 12-point Times New Roman. And I'm going to have to put it in alphabetical order with the rest. I noticed that the italics looks good. Notice et al. Means and other people, so he's not the only author here.